Yeah. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? Okay, so I welcome you all to Cape Coast Slave Castle. My name is Tony Buedi, and I'll be your tour guide. But before we start today's experience here at Cape Coast Slave Castle, I'd like to give a very brief introduction. European slave traders built 3 slave castles in the whole of West Africa. The Danes established Oso Castle in 1661, and the British built Cape Coast Slave Castle in 1664. So that stands to reason that Elmina Castle is the oldest and Cape Coast Castle is the youngest. Elmina Castle, which is the oldest, is 542 years old. Cape Coast Castle, which is the youngest, this here is 360 years old. Now, Elmina Castle is not just the oldest, it is also the biggest slave castle. Now, here at Cape Coast Slave Castle are 2 dungeons, the male slave dungeon and the female slave dungeon. In the male slave dungeon were about 1,000 African men. In the female slave dungeon were 300 or more enslaved African women. Ladies and gentlemen, what actually triggered the Europeans to come here in the first place to begin with? What actually brought them here? Long before the Europeans came here, our ancestors were very peaceful people. However, they did not have geopolitical boundaries as we have today, like Ghana, Nigeria, Senegal, Burkina Faso. No, they had what we call empires, kingdoms, chiefdoms, and there were different tribes that spoke different languages. And before these Europeans came, again, our ancestors were already fighting against each other over resources such as land and gold, but we were still not practicing slavery. Now, in servitude, servants who were meant to serve their masters could marry the daughters of their masters. They could have children. They could even inherit the properties of their masters. They could also maintain their names. So, for example, if you are Kweku in your jurisdiction and you become a prisoner of another jurisdiction, you can still keep your name Kweku. They couldn't change their names. Now, that is servitude or domestic servitude. But slavery is a different concept. Now, long before the Europeans came, the first intruders to come here were the Arabs. The Arabs came across a desert we call Sahara Desert. Do you all know the Sahara Desert? The Arabs came for gold, ivory, spices, and many Africans to the Middle East. However, the Arabs castrated all the African men they took there. They didn't want black people to reproduce over there. That's the major reason why today we have African Americans who come here to see where the ancestors were taken from. We have black Europeans, you have Caribbeans. We don't know where the black Arabs are because many African men bleeded in that painful experience till they died. From their observation, gold was from West Africa. The first Europeans to come here were the Portuguese. The Portuguese navigated and eventually got to Ghana in the year 1471. It was around 1482 that the Portuguese built the Elmina Slave Castle. Now, the major difference between Cape Coast Slave Castle and the Elmina Slave Castle is that the Elmina Castle was not built for slave trade. But this one, the dungeons I'm going to show you today, the British built it in the name of transforming innocent Africans into enslaved people before they shipped them away. And we call that experience the Africans had to go through being held in the dungeons, pain compliance, using pain to get results from people, how to break someone down, how to psychologically manipulate someone completely. I'll show you in the dungeons. Before the enslaved Africans got here at the slave castle, they had to walk many miles or kilometers before they got here. There's a slave market in the northern region of Ghana we call Salaga. From Salaga, they walk there. Asen Manso. You know Asen Manso? You saw the river there. So the river is called Ndonkonsun, slave water, slave river. So those who walk from that part, northern Ghana, Mali, Burkina Faso, were taken to the Asen Manso. They cleaned them, they shaved them. That's why they took the last bath before they brought them here, where we are right now. On the tables were basic items, such as clothing items, red wine, gunpowder, sugar, tobacco. Charlie. So these were the British traders were stationed. waiting on the African slave traders to bring the enslaved Africans to them for transaction to take place. On the branding irons were the names or the initials of the trading companies. They'll put it in fire and place it on the bodies of the enslaved Africans for easy identification. Elmina Castle alone is 182 years older than Cape Coast Castle. What has you? One answer. There was gold everywhere. So Ghana was known as a gold coast. So there was a massive competition amongst the Europeans. When the British were here, the French, the Dutch wanted to take over in the name of taking over the people, the resources and everything. So these were the weapons. But the cannonballs that were meant to be injected in these cannons had holes in them. So they first put gunpowder in the holes, insect the cannonballs with fire, they light them up. And these went very far, 1 kilometer, 900 meters, 800. They were very powerful, very big. They had wheels. They could change their locations and directions. So that's the residence of the governor. Can you see it? Now, that's the highest floor. Racism is not real. In order to feel and think you are better than somebody, you are superior to somebody, you need to put yourself in a position of being above that person. So this was part of the ways of engineering the mindset of them being on top of us. Bibia Shanasi. What else here? Now, this is the church the British built here on top of the male slave dungeon at Cape Coast Slave Castle. So beneath the church is the male slave dungeon. In the male slave dungeon were about 1,000 enslaved African men. Now, the name of the church the British built on top of the male slave dungeon here at Cape Coast Slave Castle is Society for the Propagation of the Gospel. Society for the Propagation of the Gospel is an Anglican church today. You know, Elmina Castle was built by the Portuguese in 1482. But in 1637, the Dutch took over and they built a church on top of the female dungeon. Also Castle, there's a church there. Same thing, same strategy. But today the church is a children's library. There are many books in this library. The Zetas came here helping other people excel. A group of black women. Is the one in the middle. Her name is Letitia Elizabeth Landon. She traveled all the way from England. She came here in 1838 to visit her husband, Maclean. But 2 months after she arrived, she was found dead in the bedroom of the governor. Now, we don't know what killed her technically, but the rumor says that she completed suicide because she saw the husband having an extramarital affair with a black woman, with an African. So she took her life. But there are some historians who claim that it was the black mistress of the husband that killed her. She died in a bedroom at the age of 36 years old. Now the third grave is for one of the British Army officers. He's called C.B. Whitehead. Now we don't know what killed him. He died at the age of 38 years old. Some claim that he died because of the wars the Dutch had with the British. Anglo-Dutch war. We call these 16s. You two are the 16s. You two. You see them. There are two 16s. During that time, during those days, they couldn't rely on the ocean, and it was the water they were using to perform the domestic activities, painting, cleaning, feeding. But what was the man and what dungeon? They just give it to them. But what boiling us. Once they boil, they make sure it's healthy. But when they want to give it to our ancestors, they just...
And the source was rainwater.
Yeah, the source was rainwater. The source is not from the ground. There's a difference between a reservoir and a well. You too. The other system is there. Boom, yeah. Wambra, hello.
Hi.
Now you all need your sunglasses, okay? Sun here. But that cell we are going is the male condemned cell. Maybe a female male dungeon. It's all the African men who resisted in the male dungeon were held in that cell. No windows, no food, no air, no light, no water, till they all died. Pachomenko. Is to find out that there are no windows here. Have you seen any windows here? That alone should convince you that this was not built for any human being to be held in. Were chained and brought here. The numbers of the African men that were brought here depended on the numbers of the African men that resisted. So if the number is 17, 14, 15, they'll bring all of them here. There were 3 doors where we just came from, very short and narrow doors. After the African men were held here, the British Army officers will close the 3 doors and lock them up in here. The African men were here without windows, no food, no air, no light, no water, till they all died. Till the last person amongst them died. No, you died before you died. That is, they held them, there's no days like 4 days, that is till they died. You know, we're all different, the system is different. So some could withstand more than, pardon? Yeah. Some of them cry. Oh, they come to see. Yeah, some come. Yeah, some do cry.